you could be the most powerful politician by the end of this year.
What they wanted was, I think, they wanted me to be arrested before the full council meeting, which was on the Tuesday.
120 kids a year are being abused in Tameside, and you were raising that and talking about that. They turned your mic off and told you to shut up.
And cut the webcast, yeah.
Can go into that a bit more detail.
Right. So it's actually been going on for a couple of years, and I've been watching what's been going on in Greater Manchester with CSE because it's absolutely disgusting. It's dreadful. And, you see the map, there's cases, there's problems in Stockport, there's problems in Oldham, there's problems in Rochdale, there's problems in Manchester. These are all boroughs that surround Manchester. No one's talking about Tameside. So do these paedophiles just stop at the border at Tameside and turn around? No, they don't. It's definitely happening here, and we need to uncover that. So round about 2020, it was just before the pandemic, and they just released one of the reports into Oldham through GMCA. So the leader of the council at the time, Brenda Warrington, called what we call members development. So these are briefings for councillors done in private, and we can ask questions quite candidly without the public being there. That's not being lack of transparency. That's so that you can obtain the facts, ask questions, which may not be palatable for some people to hear. But eventually it does come out into the open. So we had a member development session on child sexual exploitation in the borough as a result of Oldham. Councillor Warrington, she said that she wanted to be fully open and transparent about it, and that's why she was doing this meeting. And she wanted to demonstrate that Tameside didn't have the same issues as what Oldham does. So we're going through the presentation, and it was clear to me that there was a problem because they got onto a slide and it said 30 cases, active cases in any given quarter. So I'm like thinking, well, that's a lot. And why are you reporting it quarterly? You've worked with the public sector in the past. These sort of things, they'll be monitored on a monthly or annual level. Never use quarterly for looking at data. It's always monthly or annually. And I just thought they're trying to mask something here by saying it's quarterly. So if you say 10 every month, that makes it sound very frequent. If you say 120 a year, that number's a lot bigger and would alarm people. So I knew that the council was trying to put a political spin on it. We're going further into the presentation, and not once did they mention any sort of like demographics of people who've been arrested or anything like that, which again said to me, if you're not willing to admit part of the problem, again, there is an issue. And so the chief executive at the time did questions, and we was joined by a detective from Greater Manchester Police there, and they said, everything's fine and that. And I said, well, where's this happening? And they said, well, why do you need to know that? And I said, well, it would help because you've not given any information about demographics and anything else like that. And there was a bit of an argument to and forth, and eventually they relented and they said it was takeaways in Hyde and taxi drivers in Ashton.
No surprise there then.
So based on those job profiles, the demographics, the high likelihood is that the Muslim men. or Pakistani men or Bangladeshi men in those areas. Hyde has a very high Bangladeshi population. Ashton, it's more Pakistani population. And so we was getting somewhere. Then from several years ago, the chief executive, Stephen Pleasant, he was a contributor to a report by the Department for Communities and Local Government in 2008, and they were seeking ways of best practice maintaining community cohesion in the area. So Tameside Council, Stephen Pleasant, submitted their response on what they do. And he said that he meets with local newspaper editors to suppress sensationalist reporting. That's a direct quote: suppress sensationalist reporting, which might otherwise add to community tensions. And I can send you that document if you want. It's all there. And so I asked him, I said, we've never heard of CSE or child grooming in Tameside. Is the reason for that is because you've been having these meetings with newspaper editors asking them not to cover it because it might hide some community tensions? Well, the meeting blew up. He started shouting and screaming at me, poking, prodding me, going, "You better fucking retract that." Oh, it was awful. He told me to apologize. I wouldn't do it. I said I was just asking a question, quite simple to do, and he wouldn't accept it. So there was some backwards and forwards between that, and basically I refused to apologize.
Good for you.
And they threatened me with legal action. Nothing came of it. And it just sort of slipped away. And then there was more reports about CSE coming out, and then there was again, it was about Oldham, and someone tweeted about CSE in Oldham, and I just did a quote tweet, and I said, everyone talks about Oldham, not to take it away from those victims in Oldham, but no one discusses what's going on in Tameside. Now, it's of my belief that there is more CSE in Tameside because there was an FOI that was done. And I think it was in the figure over a decade, Oldham had just over 500 cases across a decade. I think it was between 2008 and 2018, there was just over 500. Well, if Tameside is getting 120 a year on average, then that means that we've had 1,200. So something is going on and something's being kept from us. And so I just did a quote tweet mentioning that. And that was on a Saturday night. On Monday afternoon, I got a phone call from a detective saying that the inspector would like me to go into the police station. And I asked why, and he said, because of the tweet that you've done. And I said, which one? It could be any, you know. So he said, well, the stuff that you've been saying about child sexual exploitation. And I said, well, have I said anything wrong in there? And he said, well, we'd like to discuss that at the police station. And I said, well, have I committed a crime? And he said, well, we haven't established that yet. So I thought, here we go.
Yeah.
So I told my group leader, Dorian Dickinson, we had a chat with it as a Conservative group on the council. And at the time, colleague Councillor Ruth Welsh, she was deputy leader. She was also shadow for children's on the council. And she worked with someone who's now a barrister. He said, if I were you, I wouldn't voluntarily go to the police station. And if you are to go with somebody. So I responded to the emails because I asked them to email me with this on. And then we was organising dates and that. I wanted to know, because one of the things that they said on the phone call, that it was as a result of a complaint that was at the command meeting, and it went through to the local what are they called, the chief superintendents or whatever, uh, the ones for the division. So for Tameside, the head honcho for Tameside, the complaint had got through to him. So my question was, well, how do you make a complaint to the most senior police officer in Tameside? I can't just ring 999 or 101 and demand to speak to the chief inspector.
Yeah. The divisional commander, they're called.
Yeah, divisional commander. I can't just do that. No one can. You couldn't do that. Member of the public can't. So it's got to come from someone else senior. And I was asking, are you monitoring my social media or where was it coming from? They just completely point blank refused to discuss that. Then my colleague, Ruth, the inspector, he came back with a date, and Ruth said that she wasn't able to make that date because she was at a funeral. So the inspector said, well, we'll just see Liam then, and we'll do this Friday. And I thought, no, you're not doing that. And then it ticked because there was such an urgency that they had to see me. What they wanted was, I think, they wanted me to be arrested before the full council meeting, which was on the Tuesday. So what preluded that? Unfortunately, I haven't got the whole meeting recorded, and Tameside Council deleted it from YouTube. But what preluded that was a speech from one of the councillors saying that I was refusing to cooperate with the police over an investigation on CSE. Now, I weren't, part of any investigation specifically, but the way that they worded it made it sound like I was, and I was being obstructive. I wasn't.
It's a great way of playing with words. If they can rephrase something, people who won't read the article just read the headline, and it says local councillor obstructing police in child sex exploitation case. That sounds like you're a pedo. Where if they then read the whole story, they then find out the rest of the information. But most people just read the headline, and it's a great way to discredit you. They do it with Roger Mia all the time.
Well, yeah. So he was arrested as part of the operation into investigating the grooming gangs, and the police put out a press release on that, and knew exactly what they were doing.
Oh, and that's why I'm not a supporter of the UK police anymore now, because they're not fit for purpose. They are a Stasi, they are a Gestapo, working for sinister figures, trying to manipulate the people and trying to push a political agenda.
So, yeah, with the police, it's like, who are they protecting? And what you got to remember with Tameside as well is we've had these incidents where people have been wrongly approached by the police. So like Raj Amir, who's been harassed, that lady who called for her councillors to resign. But who are the people at the top? Well, you've got Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister.
You have. I forget about her sometimes. Yeah, she's extremely powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what people don't make the connection with as well is she also was MP for Oldham at one point because her old constituency boundaries covered Failsworth. So if there was something embarrassing to come out about Oldham or Tameside, it would reflect very much on Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And who are the people around her? Well, you've got Jonathan Reynolds in Stalybridge and Hyde, the fake solicitor who's now business secretary. Jim McMahon in Oldham, the borough next door, He's a local government minister. And I find it absolutely hilarious that you've got Angela Rayner and Jim McMahon in charge of local government when Oldham and Tameside are complete basket cases of councils. And then up until he got sacked, you had Andrew Gwynn, who was public health minister as well. So there's a lot of people and reputations to protect. And I think when this comes out in the open, I think there'll be lots more uncovered that we don't know. And I have a feeling it's to protect very senior politicians above that.
And let me add another layer to this. There's a very good chance when Keir Starmer falls this summer, Angela Rayner could be Prime Minister. So not only is she an extremely powerful politician today, everyone's looking at her going, you could be the most powerful politician by the end of this year. I need to keep on your good side. I need to make sure that you're not looking at me in a few months' time going, you didn't sort me out when I needed, a favor. So you can see how all this happens.